Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 30th of August 2024. Well, Millbrook House is almost ready for everyone to come back next week. We have had a move around, as I said last week, where the equipment room is now in the larger back office behind the kitchen. We're trying to get everything completely finished and ready for next week, so hoping this will happen. Reception is basically the same, but just much clearer, with the big table moved to allow more space as people walk in. A little date reminder, the 24th of September 2024 for our open day, which is being held at Riverside, hoping as many people as possible can come and help new members with their current experiences and lived experience. That's it from me, just a short one this week as I'm actually away at the moment with my mum, enjoying some peace before the children return to school next week. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the weather when you can. Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news for the 30th of August 2024. All activities resume on Monday, therefore swimming at Medina Leisure Centre in Newport starting at 1:15. We have the pool to ourselves and therefore if you would like to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you are more than welcome to join us. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited.
On Tuesday, we once again have yoga at Millbrook House between 1:45pm and 2:45pm. The cost is £4 and includes refreshments.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday starting at 10am until 11:30am. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
On Thursday, our Mix and Mingle group will resume starting at 10:30am. This group enjoys many activities, including craft, quizzes, singing, and each other's company. We have a limited amount of spaces available. Please call Susan to discuss further.
Living Well with Sight Loss course is on Friday the 6th of September at Millbrook House between 10am and 2pm. If you would like to join us, please call the office and book a space. Carers or family members are very welcome to come along with you.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined Leading Freight Specialist Opens First Isle of Wight Depot. Island Freight Specialists GBGL are opening their first depot on the Isle of Wight. The new depot on Riverway, next to Medina Food Service, will be headed up by Islander David Groves, Head of Area Logistics for the Isle of Wight, who brings almost 40 years of experience in the freight industry, 23 of which he has worked on the Isle of Wight. JPGL specialise in island logistics in the Channel Islands, import, export and cross-border logistics via air, ocean and road around the UK and Europe, as well as customs clearance and warehouse and fulfilment services. Operating 7 days a week out of 3 depots in the south of England, JPGL is also part of one of the most trusted pallet networks, Pallet Track, responsible for delivering to Jersey and Guernsey. David Groves says, I'm delighted to join JPGL and head up their new depot on the island, offering a much-needed alternative freight route onto and off of the Isle of Wight. Our team at JPGL are island specialists, with extensive knowledge and experience, having transported freight to the Channel Islands for many years. JPGL offers a reliable and fast pallet delivery service, which is what our island needs to keep our businesses connected with the mainland and beyond. David will be supported by Nigel Johnson, who will be responsible for health and safety as well as compliance, and Lee Mackenzie will be managing the depot. David adds, our focus is always on our customer, and I'm looking forward to working with local businesses again to provide this new service, while working with local suppliers where possible to support local business.
Hello, this is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. New beginning for Wessex Cancer Support Centre in Newport. Wessex Cancer Support has welcomed more clients to its Newport Centre and brought in a new manager to run it. The centre was refurbished in 2019, with the support of the local community. Since then, client numbers have continued to grow. Over the past few weeks, there have been some positive developments as the island staff ready to help the community as effectively as possible. Liz Tapsell has been announced as the new centre manager, responsible for overseeing the delivery of services including counselling, therapies and both group and drop-in sessions. Liz, who has been a previous client and volunteer in the centre, was promoted from her role of centre coordinator. Liz said, "I'm thrilled to be given the opportunity to lead Wessex Cancer Support Services on the island. I'll be working hard to further the charity's connections in the local community to ensure everyone who would benefit from our support knows where to find it. I've already been working closely with Laura, the Isle of Wight's regional fundraising manager, to give the centre a spruce up, including a lick of paint, swap around of rooms and a good clear out. Laura and Liz are excited to welcome the island community into the fresh new space." Wessex Cancer Support provides free and local emotional support to anyone affected by cancer in Hampshire, Dorset and the Isle of Wight. Clients may have cancer themselves, be adjusting to life after cancer, supporting someone with cancer, or be bereaved. It is a charity which relies on donations to provide this support. It runs services in the heart of the community, including popular Sing for Life choirs and transport on its Daisy buses, to help the Isle of Wight and Channel Island patients get to their hospital appointments on the mainland.
Rideman accuses council of walking away from his right to services. From the Isle of Wight radio, read by Lee. A 59-year-old man from Ryde has accused the Isle of Wight Council of walking away from his legal right to disability services, but the local authority insists it is trying to help. Former homeless services worker David Moynihan has said he was neglected by the council's community occupational therapy service after losing much of his sight. He described the situation as wrong on so many levels. Around 7 years ago, David lost focus in his right eye, and about 4.5 years later, overnight, he lost all vision in his left eye, as well as the ability to drive. His doctor told him he should get an assessment from Adult Social Care, and a social worker referred him to the council's Occupational Therapy Service, or OT, which is outsourced. After the referral came back, David said he was told that the OT service doesn't do sensory disabilities. Without an OT referral, he was unable to access other council services such as kitchen adaptation to keep him safe there. Isle of Wight charity Sight for Wight helped him put together an OT report and submit it to the OT service, who in turn sent it to the council's Disabled Facilities Grant Department. The charity was not, however, able to fully support him due to a lack of resources and specific OT services he needed. And earlier this year, David said he reiterated his request for an OT assessment to another social worker and put in a complaint to the council, only to be told they did not have an occupational therapist specialising in visual impairment. He said, "You have to help people. This is a major life change for me. They have to pay for someone to come and do it, or hire OTs that can actually do it." A spokesman for the Isle of Wight Council said, "We acknowledge and recognise the significant impact that the loss of any sense such as sight can have on an individual, such as Mr. Moynihan. The Council has already confirmed to Mr. Moynihan that we will provide an occupational therapy assessment supported by Wight Sense to provide specialist expertise in supporting those with visual impairment. The Council commissioned Wight Sense to provide the sensory service. This service offers specialist expertise in assessment, advice, and information to those with a sensory impairment. Mr. Moynihan says he has not been offered a date for an assessment, and he doesn't think Wight Sense has the services that would meet his needs."
Comment from Wight Sense. As detailed in this article, Wight Sense has completed an assessment and has made a referral to occupational therapy. It is with occupational therapy that Mr. Moynihan is waiting for an assessment, not Wight Sense.
Hi, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined, campaign group in progress as councillors hit out against carbon dioxide pipeline plans. 2 Isle of Wight council members are teaming up to launch a campaign group opposing ExxonMobil's Solent carbon dioxide pipeline. Councillors Nick Stewart and Claire Christensen have said the group will be established with a small committee on September the 11th after the next Isle of Wight Parish Council meetings. Following the launch, the representatives for Bryston, Calbourne and Shalfleet and Chale, Knighton and Shorrow will host a mid-September public meeting. The first gathering will make plans and organise for a wider public meeting for when the campaign hopes to get underway. Councillor Stewart has urged anyone who can help with the campaign or offer any expertise to get in touch via email. The leader of the Isle of Wight Liberal Democrats and former engineer and science teacher said yesterday he remains entirely unconvinced of carbon capture and storage technology, which ExxonMobil's pipeline is seeking to implement. He accused ExxonMobil of potentially smashing the Solent and the Isle of Wight's landscape. In reference to ExxonMobil's ongoing series of public consultations on proposed pipeline corridor routes, he said, "The polite professional people gave the best answers they could, but lack of detail, refusal to provide any information on the carbon dioxide sources or quantities, or on alternatives, and the clear threat of legal action if they weren't given access for surveying and the intention to use compulsory purchase of powers, made it clear they see landowners and other Isle of Wight residents as an inconvenience to be sweet-talked or steamrollered." Councillor Christensen described the consultation session she attended in Knighton on Saturday as very obstructive. The former council chair said she had wanted to approach the pipeline project with an open mind, but came away from the Knighton meeting with a very negative impression of ExxonMobil's behaviour. She claimed a company representative at the sessions said ExxonMobil were deciding on the least worst route, which she added implied all the options are negative. Councillor Christensen said, "Safety plans were vague, landowner permissions were tricky, but they have options and National Trust have assisted them in the past. Read into that what you will. I wanted further details on the decision-making process for the 3 routes, and the financial information about losses to industry in the Solent compared to tourism and farming on the island, but that is not available, or hasn't actually occurred, it seems." The representative also stated that this technology is intended as a temporary way to deal with the emissions, whilst other non-fossil fuel options are being developed and installed. I felt the example given of, if everyone had an electric car at this moment, the power wouldn't be available, was very weak. That, to me, is an excuse to continue to produce oil-based fuel and not push for change. ExxonMobil have been approached for comment.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo read by Sue. Leeson Road will close again next week, but could reopen by Christmas. The Isle of Wight Council has confirmed that Leeson Road in Ventnor will once again be closed in both directions from Sunday the 8th of September, but could reopen by the end of the year. It was in December last year that a major landslide hit the Bonchurch area, leading to concerns for the safety of road users travelling along the A3055. The road remained closed to all traffic and pedestrians until the 17th of July, when the decision was taken to temporarily open the road for the summer holidays. It was previously advised that the A road connecting Shanklin and Ventnor would close again on Sunday the 8th of September at 2200 hours, which the local authority has now confirmed is still the case. Over the past 6 weeks or so, there has been a traffic management operative on site 24 hours a day. The workers have been keeping an eye on the situation, taking measurements and ensuring the safety of all road users. Thankfully, as many predicted, there have been no incidents and no changes to the risk levels. The forthcoming closure is to allow the drilling of a 3 times 85mm boreholes, thought to be the deepest ever sunk on the island at around 110 metres deep. These will allow island roads to understand the nature of the underlying geology in the area and also allow the additional monitoring equipment to be installed deep underground, something which should have taken place months ago. An early warning system is being developed that will allow the road to reopen without the need for traffic management, but with a safety net of an automatic road closure if movement is detected. Natasha Dix, Service Director for Waste, Environment and Planning, has said, "While all this information will help our long-term understanding of both Leeson Road and the wider area, it will also give us the short-term information necessary to install the early warning system that will allow us to reopen Leeson Road without ongoing traffic management." L.R. Mitchell, Love and Natasha Dix, Michelle Love, Service Director for Highways and Community Protection, adds, "We know how important it is to keep Leeson Road open, and that has always been the aim. What we have needed is the accurate, real-time data for us to be able to do that safely. These boreholes and the equipment that will be installed within them will give us the information we need. Naturally, we cannot give any guarantees until the latest data can be analysed, but we are hopeful this work will prove a crucial step in the safe reopening of Leeson Road." The Isle of Wight Council says it aims to have Leeson Road reopened by December, paving the way for a positive start to 2025.
History of SS Shieldhall. From sludge ship to historic marvel. From the County Press, read by Lee. As the SS Shieldhall prepares to set sail once again, carrying a new generation of passengers on a nostalgic journey through time, it's worth reflecting on the remarkable history of this iconic steamship. The SS Shieldhall is a remarkable vessel, serving as a living testament to a bygone era of steamship technology. Her history spans 7 decades, and she has called 2 major United Kingdom cities home. Constructed in 1955 by Lobnitz and Company in Renfrew, Scotland, the Shieldhall was designed for a rather unusual purpose, transporting treated sewage sludge. This role earned her the nickname Clyde Banana Boat. Operated by Glasgow Corporation, the Shieldhall diligently carried out her duties on the River Clyde for 21 years, transporting sludge to be dumped at sea. However, her role extended beyond this, as she was used for river inspections and official engagements, often hosting passengers in her saloon. The saloon, with its wood-panelled walls and brass fittings, offers a taste of elegance from a bygone era. The ship's crew's quarters provided a glimpse into the lives of those who operated her. It's a stark contrast to the modern comforts we are accustomed to, highlighting the challenging conditions under which they worked. In 1977, the Shieldhall was purchased by the Southern Water Authority and underwent modifications to continue her sludge-carrying duties, this time operating between the Solent and the Isle of Wight. Rising fuel costs led to her retirement in 1985. Recognising her historical significance, efforts began to preserve the unique vessel. Thanks to dedicated volunteers and support, the Shieldhall was saved from the scrapyard and transformed into a heritage steamship. The constant battle against corrosion and wear and tear is a daily challenge. The ship requires meticulous maintenance to keep her in operational condition. As a charity-run organisation, the Shieldhall relies heavily on public support, donations and ticket sales to fund her upkeep and operations. The SS Shieldhall is a popular attraction, offering cruises, charters and events. She operates from Southampton, offering passengers the chance to experience the magic of steam. Her preserved machinery, including the original steam engines and telegraphs, provide a fascinating glimpse into the past. Her twin triple expansion steam engines are a marvel of engineering. These engines, though considered outdated at the time of her construction, are incredibly efficient and powerful, capable of propelling the ship at a respectable speed. The heart of the ship lies in her boiler room. 2 Scotch boilers generate the steam that drives the engines. Visitors can often witness the mesmerising dance of flames and the rhythmic pulse of the ship as the boilers do their work. Interestingly, the shield hall's hull is a blend of old and new shipbuilding techniques. While the overall design is a classic, the use of both riveted and welded construction showcases the traditional phase in shipbuilding. The ship has also appeared in numerous films and documentaries. But beyond being a floating museum, the Shield Hall plays a vital role in the community. She offers educational programs for schools and youth groups, teaching about maritime history, engineering, and environmental issues. The ship hosts various events, from weddings to corporate functions, fostering a sense of community and connection to the maritime past.
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Islanders urged to keep electoral details up to date so they can have their say. Islanders are being urged to check their electoral registration details or risk losing their chance to vote on decisions that affect them. Residents will start receiving letters from the Isle of Wight Council from the 29th of August. You will be asked to confirm if the names of people listed as eligible to vote in your household are correct. Being on the electoral register means you can vote in future elections, and it can help with your credit rating. The annual canvass ensures the council can keep the electoral register up to date. It identifies any residents who are not registered so they can be encouraged to do so. Claire Shand, Director of Corporate Services, said, "It's important residents keep an eye out for letters from us which start arriving from the 29th of August. This helps us make sure we have the right details on the electoral register for every address on the island. To ensure you are able to have your say at any future elections, simply follow the instructions in your letter. It's really quick and easy. If you're not currently registered, your name will not appear on the letter or forms we send. If you want to register, the easiest way is online. I'll send you information explaining how to do this in the post. Once registered, you will then be able to take part in any future elections. People who have recently moved are particularly encouraged to look out for the voter letter and check and confirm the details. Research by the Electoral Commission indicates that recent home movers are far less likely to be registered than those who have lived at the same address for a long time. Across Britain, 92% of people who have been at their property for more than 16 years will be registered, compared to 36% of people who have lived at an address for less than a year. Any residents who have questions can contact the Council's electoral registration team. Absolute disgrace, say Sandown residents over state of Battery Gardens, from the Island Echo. A Sandown retiree has said she and other residents are fed up with the degraded state of Sandown Battery Gardens. Eileen Hayes said they had repeatedly contacted the Island of Wight Council asking it to properly maintain Ferncliff Path, which runs beside the gardens and the Sandown Barrack Battery, a national scheduled monument. After attempting to contact the council's commercial services, who she said were not responsive, Elaine and 7 other volunteers got to work on the path themselves last Monday, the 19th of August. Elaine said, 30 man-hours later, between us, we cleared the path and made a big difference. The outpourings of support by the Sandown residents has been quite overwhelming. We shouldn't have had to do it, but it seemed that quite possibly this is island-wide. This is a national monument that this cliff path runs beside, and it is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. On Friday morning, Eileen discovered the path full of cans, broken glass and rubbish with the smell of urine. She added, "When is the council going to make a permanent solution to this eyesore waste of money and time?" A spokesperson for Isle of Wight Council has said, "We are sorry to hear that the residents felt it necessary to undertake works to the path, but thank them for their efforts." The coastal cliff path is maintained within the Isle of Wight Council grounds maintenance contract. The site-specific information for the coastal cliff path from Sandown to Shanklin is for an annual cut of the grass areas over the fence on the cliff edge between mid-September and mid-November. This includes scrub and vegetation such as bramble and gorse. Under Section 1 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, it is an offence to cause harm to nesting birds or their eggs. Therefore, the trimming of hedges should not be undertaken in nesting bird season. Nesting months are typically between March and August each year, which is why hedge cutting is carried out in the autumn-winter months. The issues with the shelters beneath Battery Gardens that have generated the beer cans and odour are due to vandalism of the harass fencing by individuals to gain access to the shelters. We are currently working to identify a long-term solution to either bring the shelters back into use or permanently fence off to avoid this issue reoccurring.
This is the second part of the Talking News read by Mary
and Tony. We begin with more news items taken from the County Press and the Observer. Pier works to disrupt travel plans. The Isle of Wight's iconic Ryde Pier will be closed from 8 o'clock at night overnight on September the 5th to traffic. Island Roads announced on Tuesday that it will carry out maintenance work to the pier entrance, affecting access to pier ferry services between September the 2nd and September the 5th. On the first 3 nights, access to the pier will be maintained under temporary traffic lights. Users of the Whitelink service are advised to allow more time for their journeys up and down the pier. On the last night of work, the road will be closed to vehicular traffic, so passengers will have to either use the train service or travel along the pier by foot for the last 3 Whitelink services of the day. Island Road's work comes immediately before Network Rail maintenance work, which will see train services suspended from September the 6th until May 2025.
Family pays tribute to cherished teen. The family of a kind, gentle and patient teenager whose disappearance from a beach led to a major search operation are paying a tribute following his death. Chris Copeney's family have also thanked emergency teams for their efforts in looking for him. Chris, 18, was last seen at Binsted Beach at around 7 p.m. last Thursday. HMS Coast Guard said a man was reported overdue from a swim. Police confirmed a body was found on Saturday morning, August the 24th. In the statement to the County Press, Chris's family said, "We are very grateful to all the emergency services and volunteers who helped look for Chris, to the search coordinators who kept us informed every step of the way, and to the police and hospital staff for their kindness as they carry out their ongoing roles. We are overwhelmed by all the messages of love and support too, both from individuals and on behalf of groups. Thank you." A talented artist and writer, Chris would create beautiful things wherever he was, his family said, including at Apley, where he would spend hours making intricate sand sculptures. Equipped with his makeshift easel on the pavements of Ryde, he would also chat with anyone who stopped to admire his amazing artwork. He also served ice cream at Long John Eater Ride with care and often a few kind words too. His family said, "We miss our beautiful Chris so much and feel privileged that he was part of our lives for nearly 19 years. He was cherished as a son, brother, grandson, godson, nephew and cousin, and by all his wider family. We realised too how much he meant to everyone who knew him at school, scouts and theatre. But Chris also touched the lives of complete strangers just by being himself. Chris was particularly passionate and caring about the environment and was an enthusiastic beach cleaner, his family said. A keen poet, he would also perform to spellbound audiences at folk clubs and Amnesty International Isle of Wight group. He wrote sketches, books, plays and political and economic tracts, the statement continued. Chris was a natural philosopher and a deep thinker. He wanted to understand everything from his own first principles. Chris was a gift to us all, always kind, patient and generous and gentle. He remain in our hearts. The former Ride Academy student had recently finished his A-levels and was looking forward to starting at Arts University in Plymouth. Earlier this week, the school paid tribute to the wonderful, intelligent student. Chris's family and friends have requested their privacy is respected at this difficult time.
Drunk man threw scissors and spat at police officers. A man violently attacked 4 police officers, hurling scissors and spitting at 2 of them. Todd James Crichton of Furlongs, Newport, admitted to 4 counts of assaulting an emergency worker, all of them male police officers, on September 4th last year. He changed his pleas on the day of his trial at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on March 28th and appeared for sentencing in July. The 40-year-old also admitted to being drunk and disorderly on May the 5th. All the offences were in Newport. At 11:10 at night on September the 4th, 2023, police were called to Caesars Road responding to neighbours' complaints of a disturbance in which banging and smashing were heard. When Crichton opened the door to officers and was questioned, he became aggressive, pushing one of the officers and trying to slam it on them, said Liz Miller, prosecuting. One of the officers prevented him shutting it with his foot, which Crichton responded by hurtling scissors at him, hitting his leg. Further police units were called to assist, and when they arrived, they found Crichton upstairs. As they tried to arrest him, he kicked backwards, striking a second officer's shin. The incident, captured on police body-worn video, also showed Crichton spitting in the face of a third officer and kicking a fourth in the shin. Regarding the drunken disorderly offence, police were called to Angelica Grove at 1:30 in the morning following reports of shouting and smashing in the street. When they arrived, Crichton, already warned by police about his behaviour that evening, was arrested. Crichton then swore and directed a homophobic remark at an officer. For Crichton, Michael McGoldrick said his client, with addiction and mental health issues since the death of his wife in 2021, was responding to help from inclusion. With help in the community, it will help him to change his ways, Mr. McGoldrick said. Presiding Magistrate Peter Redding told Crichton spitting at somebody doing his duty was absolutely disgusting. Crichton was handed 18 months probation and must pay £100 compensation to each of the 4 officers.
Main road to close for major work on railway. A main road at a busy junction is set to close for more than 8 weeks for Network Rail works. Between September the 2nd and October the 31st, Avenue Road in Sandown will close in both directions, from its junction with Tamar Close to its junction with Perone Way. Network Rail says the closure is necessary for essential engineering work. It will see the old span of the bridge over Avenue Road removed and renewed, as well as the altering of the electric rail which powers the trains around Sandown Station. Network Rail says it will help deliver a more efficient railway on the island in the future. Power tools will be used to erect scaffolding around the bridge, and noisy hand tools will be used to remove old paint. The route under the bridge will remain open to pedestrians for most of the duration, however. The works will involve a full junction closure of Perone Way, Morton Common and Avenue Road between Friday, September the 27th and Monday, September the 30th. This period of works will see the installation of a crane to remove the old bridge.
Regatta returns with a splash. Seaview welcomed the return of its annual regatta earlier this month. Running from August 13th to August 15th, the 3-day event was enjoyed by hundreds of spectators and competitors. Events included sailing, tug-of-war, beach sports, swimming, diving, greasy pole, rowing, and paddleboarding. The Olympic laser class was dominated by the children of regatta president Josh Bottomley, with Sanan, Cloda and Nate Bottomley all finishing in the top 5. Josh Bottomley also won the Big Keelboat Open Handicap Otter Cup sailing race with his boat crewed by his family members. First place in the lugger race went to Barnaby Edwards from the Garlic Farm. In diving, James Bannister won both the overall and the over 40 challenge, winning over his son in the former category. Ollie Waltham and Senan Bottomley reached the final number 10 spot, sliding along the greasy pole, with Ollie winning overall across 2 attempts. The men's paddleboard podium was a family affair, with Will Blacker taking first place, followed by Chippy Blacker and Freddie Blacker. The final rescue race, with male competitors rowing out to rescue their swimming female team member, was by father-daughter combo of Rob de Laszlo and Poppy de Laszlo. The regatta also commemorated the voice of the regatta, Richard Botel, who, alongside Jeremy Spencer Copper, retires from his commentator role for the rowing events after 50 years.
Community bus service cash boost. Freshwater Parish Council has shown support for community transport service FYT bus with a donation of £5,000. The council has been a long-time advocate of FYT bus, hailing it as a vital service for residents. This service, established when Southern Vectors withdrew certain routes in the West Wight, has become invaluable for locals. Operated by trained volunteers, FYT Bus is a self-funded charity aiming to improve access to health facilities, shops and leisure amenities. The fleet consists of 4 minibuses and a wheelchair-adapted carrier for passengers with medical and other needs. Offering a new Flex E service via an app, telephone or website, residents can now conveniently have a bus come directly to them on weekday afternoons.
Woman falls at Shoreline. Coast Guard teams were called to assist a woman who fell in Ventnor on the afternoon of Monday, August 19th. At around 4:50 p.m, HM Coast Guard was alerted to an incident involving a woman who had fallen at Ventnor shoreline near Kings Bay Road. Ventnor and Bembridge Coast Guard rescue teams both attended. The woman was passed into the care of the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service.
Police step up patrols in park. Antisocial behaviour at a Sandend park has led to intervention from a local councillor and police. Nighttime patrols are being stepped up at Los Altos Park following complaints. Ian Ward, Isle of Wight councillor for Sandend South, contacted Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary last Thursday. A resident said groups of youths were shouting and screaming, lighting bonfires and keeping her awake until the early hours. Councillor Ward said the woman who contacted him had previously reported antisocial behaviour around a month ago, which officers had also responded to. The former chair of the Isle of Wight Council said he did not know what the cause of the antisocial behaviour was, but thought school holidays may have been a contributing factor. He said, "It's easy to say we need more youth facilities and all the rest of it, but that's a forever answer, isn't it? They have already stepped up policing around the Bay Area. Of course, we'd all like more. You'd never say no, would you?"
Pantry offers a helping hand. In the heart of the island, a small but significant pantry is making a big impact on the community. The Pyle Street Pantry, based at Newport Congregational Church, has become a beacon of hope for those struggling to make ends meet, with over 700 members. Overseen by the Reverend Mark Evans and pantry manager Leanne Arnold, this community pantry offers more than just food. It provides a lifeline. With the cost of living crisis still ongoing, many families across the island are finding it increasingly difficult to put food on the table. The Pyle Street Pantry, which celebrated its first anniversary earlier this year, is a crucial resource for those households. By providing food at a fraction of supermarket prices, the pantry helps to alleviate some of the financial strain felt by its members. For just £5 a week, members receive 10 ambient items and 2 frozen products, often totalling between £15 and £20 in value, to top up their supermarket shop. The pantry operates on a membership basis, is open to all islanders and is free to sign up. Currently, the pantry serves around 120 households each week, with approximately 100 to 150 people visiting the pantry every Wednesday, its opening day. On the day of the county press's visit, 70 members had already passed through its doors in the morning session, with more arriving during the evening opening hours. Leanne Arnold, who manages the pantry, had seen firsthand the difference it had made in the community. A year ago there was much less stock available, but it has since grown, she said. When we started, we only used the middle shelves of our pantry, but now the top and bottom shelves are used too. The pantry receives some donations, but most of its stock is purchased from Morrisons and Iceland through funding from various sources, including the National Lottery Community Fund and the Isle of Wight Council's Household Support Fund, costing around £1,000 to £1,500 a week to restock.
Volunteers appeal for pathwork. A walking charity this week issued an urgent appeal for help with minor maintenance work on Isle of Wight paths. The Isle of Wight Ramblers needs volunteers to assist the Isle of Wight Council's public rights of way service with outstanding tasks at 4 different grid reference locations. Areas the group highlighted are Berry Shoot between Billingham and Chillerton, Kingston and Shorewall. Tim Marshall, who leads the Isle of Wight Ramblers footpath minor maintenance team, said, "If you notice a minor maintenance issue, please report it to rightsoftway at iow.gov.uk. They will pass it to me and it will be put on the website. Please give a description, position and, if possible, a photo. If there's a job near you and you think you can tackle it, email me at tim@rookley.net. At the time of going to press, some of the jobs listed online have been tackled and sorted."
Post office to shut earlier than planned. A town centre post office will not stay open until early next year after all, it has been confirmed. Despite the sudden closure of central stores where it was based, the post office on Well Road, East Cowes, was expected to remain open until January. However, post office confirmed that it has not been possible due to a shortage of staff. Both the store and the post office shut on August the 14th. A post office spokesman said, "We sincerely apologise for the inconvenience caused by the unplanned closure. We know how important the post office is to a community, and we will continue to work hard to restore services in the area as soon as possible. We would welcome any applications from potential retail partners interested in running a branch locally on our behalf." East Cowes Councillor Carl Love said the Town Council had registered an interest to run some form of post office, but it would most likely not be a quick fix. The newest post office can be found 0.9 miles away, up the hill at Osborne Garage, York Avenue. Alternatively, residents can head to Pan Post Office, which is 5 miles away, the post office said.
Campaigners lose legal battle over house scheme. Campaigners have lost a legal battle to stop a major housing development being built on the outskirts of Ryde. Plans for the 475-home West Acre Park project will now gather pace, developer Captiva Homes has said, with the first homes expected to be ready by 2025. Permission was formally granted in April last year, years after plans were first put forward. Campaign groups Save Westridge Farm and Greenfields Isle of Wight Limited fundraised tens of thousands of pounds to take the Isle of Wight Council to court over the plans. Campaigners believed the council made errors in the planning process and said they could not allow the authority to get away with a huge miscarriage of justice. The council has always denied any wrongdoing. In February, a King's Council judge ruled Greenfield Isle of Wight Limited could have its day in court, and a 2-day hearing was held at the beginning of July. A judgment has now been given, revealing the judicial review has been dismissed. Captiva Director James Pink said, "We are delighted for the Isle of Wight Council that the judicial review of West Acre Park's planning consent has been decisively dismissed on all grounds. This outcome affirms that the council managed the application with professionalism and integrity. Capita Homes will now move forward with the project at pace, eager to deliver 473 much-needed homes for islanders, with the first homes expected to be ready for occupation in 2025.
Biker hurt in collision with tractor. Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary is appealing for information following a collision involving a tractor in Adgerston which left a motorcyclist seriously injured. Police were called shortly after 7 p.m. on Tuesday, August the 20th, following reports of a collision on Lower Road near Brading. Officers confirmed that the crash involved a Yamaha R125 and a tractor which was towing a trailer. Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Air Ambulance was also called to the incident. The rider of the motorcycle, a man in his 40s, was taken to Southampton General Hospital with serious injuries. A spokesman for police said, "Were you in the area at the time of the incident? Did you witness the collision? Or were you driving by with a dash cam fitted to your vehicle? If you have any information, please contact us online or on 101 quoting 442403581148.
Your County Press is on the move. An exciting new chapter beckons for the historic Isle of Wight County Press as the UK's biggest selling weekly prepares to move into new and improved office space. Fresh from a record-breaking July which saw the newsroom record its best month yet for online stats, our island-based team will soon be working from state-of-the-art facilities at the Innovation Centre, St Cross Business Park, Newport. Since 1992, the island's biggest group of media professionals have been based at Brannan House in Pyle Street. The historic building is being left in good hands with much-loved island charity Friends of the Animals moving in. From our new office, our team of journalists and sales leads will continue producing our and your historic weekly title, which appears online at countypress.co.uk and since 1884 in print. Editor Laurie Little said, "This move to a new office marks a positive change for the team and complements our continued growth." Our online audience figures for July and August have been fantastic, and they are only going one way, up. Countypress.co.uk is the island's leading news website by some margin. These days we can do our jobs with a smartphone and a laptop, and we don't need as much space as we used to. I'm glad our building, which has served us so well over the years, will be left in the caring hands of Friends of the Animals. Helen Sinclair, founder of Friends of the Animals, said the charity is delighted. She said, "The charity has well and truly outgrown the current premises in Riverway, where we have goods literally touching the ceiling. In the last couple of years, the number of calls we are receiving and the number of animals we are helping has absolutely rocketed, and a move will enable the charity to expand and move forward. The new premises are huge, and the much-needed extra space will be perfect for relocating our office, for sorting, recycling donated goods, and for a shop. Being located just 2 minutes walk from the bus station will also make it easier for volunteers to reach us. We would like to thank the County Press for the support they give us, and we wish them every success in their new premises."
Drug driving labourer put off the road. A builder's labourer caught drug driving in a Vauxhall Astra was banned from driving. Jimmy Parr of Arthur Street, Ryde, admitted driving while unfit through drugs on January the 5th when he appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. At 10:40 at night, police on patrol on St John's Road, Ryde, saw Parr. Somebody flagged up to the police for a previous drugs offence, driving past them. Officers followed Parr, who then took a sharp left into Prince Street and was pulled over. When questioned, Parr became evasive and was detained under stop and search drugs legislation and was tested for drug use, subsequently failing, said Liz Miller, prosecuting. A blood sample provided a cannabis reading of 2.2 milligrams per litre. The legal limit is 2. Parr, 28, was fined by magistrates in June for possessing drugs. For Parr, Oscar Vincent said his client had been running an errand and was only stopped because he had been known to the police, not for bad driving or carrying passengers. Mr. Vincent added Parr had not used cannabis for several days leading up to the offence. Magistrates banned Parr from driving for a year with a £150 fine and a £60 surcharge.
Missing man is located. A man missing from Sandown has been found, police have confirmed. An appeal was put out to find Neil Youngs, who was last seen on Culver Parade, Sandown. Police issued the appeal on Wednesday night, 4 hours after he disappeared. White SAR, the island search and rescue team, was also paged. Less than 24 hours later, a police spokesperson has confirmed he has been located.
Stricken vessel towed to port. Rescue teams responded to a distress call from a yacht in trouble off the Isle of Wight on Thursday, August 22nd. HM Coast Guard was alerted to St Catherine's Head at around 9:50 in the morning. A sailing vessel suffered engine difficulties. Bembridge RNLI was tasked alongside 3 nearby vessels who responded to the distress call. The sailing vessel was towed to a safe port in the Solent.
Fears for future of NHS dentists. A petition has been launched amid fears over the future of an Isle of Wight dental surgery. My Dentist in Freshwater is one of the only dentists providing NHS treatment in the West Wight. However, there are concerns it could close after the provider revealed it is battling with severe staff shortages. A spokesman for the My Dentist Freshwater practice said, "In common with many dental practices across the UK, and particularly on the Isle of Wight, we are experiencing a severe shortage of NHS dentists locally. As a result, we are unfortunately having to consider the long-term future of our freshwater practice." A petition to delay the closure, set up by Islander Leo and Jehu, has around 700 signatures at the time of press. It reads, "There is only one NH dentist in the Freshwater, Totland and Yarmouth area. We call upon the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Wes Streeting, to pressure the My Dentist Group to delay the closure of the freshwater practice until another company can be found to take over the delivery of NHS dental services in the Freshwater, Yarmouth, Totland area." Leon said, "Shutting the practice will leave a population of around 10,000 people with no access to NHS dental care. It's claimed any potential closure could also result in the loss of jobs." The My Dentist spokesperson added, "Our patients and their care remain our top priority, and we want to reassure them that we are working hard to review all of the options available to us. We will continue to keep our patients informed on the progress we are making, and we will do everything we can to carry on supporting them in getting access to the affordable dental care they need." In January, My Dentist Newport practice on Grace Walk, Pyle Street, shut its doors. A letter sent to patients said, "The difficult and disappointing decision had not been taken lightly, and it was extremely sorry." An acute shortage of dentists and subsequent recruitment challenges were blamed. This was followed by news of changes at My Dentist's Ryde branch. From February this year, the practice on Cross Street moved away from offering NHS treatment and went private.
Knife threat ban caught walking on railway tracks. A man, already in debt to the court, has been fined again after threatening a man with a knife and trespassing on railway tracks. Richard Herbert of Printers Mews, Shanklin, attended the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, August the 23rd, and pleaded guilty to using threatening or abusive words likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress, and trespassing. Lauren Stone, prosecuting, said the 25-year-old walked off the platform at Shanklin train station and walked along the tracks on March the 12th. Fortunately, maintenance was being carried out on the line and the tracks were not live, the court heard. Ms. Stone said the police were contacted and, upon arrival, Herbert said he did not intend to hurt himself, he just wanted to leave the island and return to Basingstoke. Herbert was on the tracks for approximately half an hour before police arrived and a further 10 minutes afterwards, Ms. Stone told magistrates. Regarding the second offence, Ms. Stone said police were called at 2:40 p.m. on August the 7th to report that Herbert had threatened the man with a weapon. Court heard that Herbert had come out of his room shouting, "No one is listening to me," headed outside and threw bin bags over a wall. Miss Stone said a man on the other side of the wall threw them back over before Herbert loudly proclaimed he had a knife and threatened the individual. No details were provided in court as to whether Herbert was in possession of a knife. Barry Keel, defending, spoke only about the trespassing offence, saying his client had a history of similar behaviour when things aren't going his way. Mr. Keel told the court about a similar incident at a Southampton train station. Herbert lives at a supported living complex in Shanklin and is marked as high dependency, Mr. Keel told the court. Magistrates handed Herbert an £80 fine and ordered him to pay £50 in costs and a £32 surcharge. These new financial penalties have been added to the 481 outstanding fines Herbert has yet to pay the court.
Tribute to National Trust Manager. The countryside manager of National Trust Isle of Wight has died, the charity and organisation has announced. The National Trust announced the death of Robin Lang on August 29th on its Instagram page. It is with great sadness that we announce our countryside manager, Robin Lang, has passed away. Robin was a beloved member of the team and the local community, and he spent his career caring for our countryside sites across the island. Our thoughts and deepest condolences are with Robin's family at this time. Please bear with our team who are working across our sites as they have all been deeply affected by this sad news. Thank you for your understanding.
Drug driver was 4 times over the limit. The tragic death of a friend led a man to drive while more than 4 times the legal limit for a derivative of cocaine, a court heard. Appearing at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court last month, Keanu Banks of Union Street Ryde admitted drug driving. He was stopped by police at Flitcroft Gardens, Sandown, on February the 4th. Defending, Jim Osborne said just days before the offence, Banks's friend had taken his own life and he was travelling to his other friend's house to comfort him. Sentencing was adjourned to September the 27th.
A serious injury in double-decker crash. A man in his 40s has suffered serious injuries following a collision involving a double-decker bus and a car. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary is appealing for witnesses and dashcam footage following the collision on a road between Wroxall and Ventnor yesterday, Thursday. At 12:02 a.m, there was a crash between a blue Ford Focus and the number 3 Southern Vectors bus on B3327 Clarence Road. The driver of the Ford, a man in his 40s from Ventnor, suffered serious injuries and was taken to hospital for treatment. Southern Vectors confirmed its Route 3 bus was involved in the head-on collision. The bus firm said there were 6 passengers on board at the time. Richard Tidsley, Southern Vectors General Manager, said, 2 of them, along with our driver, sustained minor injuries and were treated at the scene. We're supporting our driver with his injuries and the obvious shock of the incident, and we wish the passengers a full and speedy recovery. We understand the driver of the car to be seriously injured. Our thoughts are with them, and we wish them a full and speedy recovery also. The bus was badly damaged and was recovered back to the depot in Newport. If anyone witnessed the collision or has any information or dashcam footage, contact police. They would particularly like to identify 2 passengers of the bus who got off the vehicle after the collision and walked off without leaving any details. Call 101 quoting reference number 442403 70129 or report online.
Scooter set out in force for Isle of Wight Rally. Thousands of islanders and scooter enthusiasts took to the streets to watch the annual Isle of Wight Scooter Rally ride out on Sunday afternoon. Each year, over the August bank holiday weekend, the event attracts hordes of riders, and this year was no exception. It was another wonderful occasion, with thousands of scooterists waving to pedestrians as they made their way across the island. Setting off at 1 p.m. from the former ice rink in Ryde, the riders made their way to Puckpool, Nettleston and St Helens, and then on to along Latimer Road to Bembridge. The route saw them head to Yaveland, through Sandown High Street, Shanklin and Apps Heath before arriving at Sandown Airport.
It's the end of the line for repair shop. After 30 years, the longest-serving Isle of Wight phone repair shop will close its doors at the end of the month as its owner looks ahead to semi-retirement. With 4 decades in the phone repair industry, Eddie Christie, 65, is closing his beloved Island Phone Repair Centre on Scarrett's Lane in Newport. Eddie's journey in the industry began in the 1980s, and he fondly remembers his time at BT Mobile when he installed a car phone for the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in 1985. Eddie moved to the island in 1994 after successfully running mobile sales and repair shops in London and Portsmouth. His expertise and dedication to his craft are evident in the hundreds of thousands of phones he estimates he has repaired. "I've fixed everything," Eddie said, reflecting on the evolution of the mobile technology from bulky, portable mobiles of the 1980s to today's sleek smartphones. He recalls a time when the market was aggressive, with pages of phone repair ads in local newspapers and the high costs for advertising in yellow pages. Despite the challenges, Eddie thrived, becoming possibly the longest-serving phone repair technician in the south of England and the longest-serving repair shop owner on the island. Eddie's workshop, which he described as organised chaos, is filled with memories. Mobile parts from across the ages, old newspaper clippings, advertisements and certificates. Beyond his technical skills, Eddie has always been a community-minded businessman. In Scarrett's Lane, he maintained a friendly relationship with neighbouring shops, and despite his ability to repair computers, he chose to refer customers to Computer Plus opposite his shop, and they would do the same for mobile repairs. Eddie remembers the busiest part of the year being around Cows Week, when yachtsmen dropped their phones into the sea. Eddie said, "I knew the phone industry was going to be big, but I did not realise how big it would be." His shop has been a constant on Scarrett's Lane for 3 decades, a period during which Eddie owned the popular Fats nightclub, now Strings Bar and Venue.
From 100 years ago, in September 1924, during the Queen's visit to Appledurcombe House at Wroxall, she saw a crippled boy holding open the gates for her car to pass through, so she threw a shilling to him and his companion. The pair were so pleased that they raided their gardens at home to make bouquets for the Queen, which she graciously accepted. The new Conservative Hall, which seated about 200, was opened at Wootton. Work on the club had started in 1914, but the outbreak of the First World War prevented the building from being completed. Advertisers were encouraged to use the county press because it was, quote, easily the most thorough and economic medium, end quote, to use to reach all islanders.
Days gone by. The county press has been bringing islanders the news since 1884. We've delved into our archives. 125 years ago, in September 1899, Princess Beatrice visited Freshwater to inspect the remains of what were believed to be ancient Phoenicians found by Robert Walker in the area. The bones were to be taken to the new museum at Carisbrooke Castle, which had been established as a memorial to her late husband, Prince Henry of Battenberg. The Reverend E. Neville Lovett, the vicar of St Saviour's Shanklin, spoke out on the present-day lack of religion in a series of addresses delivered to men only on a Sunday afternoon. Readers were reminded not to forget Cowes Carnival, the last of the island's carnival season, which was to include a procession starting at Egypt Point, plus illuminations and thousands of lanterns and fairy lights in Northwood Park.
From 50 years ago, in August 1974, the island opened a new careers centre in Orchard Street, Newport. It was opened to meet the demands of the Employment and Training Act 1973, which required local education authorities to provide a career guidance service for young people.
My View by Tim Devlin. We like it here, it's a different world. Even before we came to live on the island, I knew there were 3 classes of citizenship here: Corkheads, Overners and Grockles. We now fit into the Overners category, drawn to the island by sailing at weekends and then confined here during COVID, and latterly discovering that most things we could do in London can now be done through the magic of white fibre. Travelling down for weekends, one always had the sensation of going on holiday. As soon as you got on the Red Jet, which was often augmented on a Friday evening by the phrase, "Any drinks?" being repeated throughout the cabin. The pandemic accelerated many changes, nearly all to the benefit of the island. Remote working has become widespread and available in many areas that previously resisted new technology. In my own field of criminal law, we had always to travel for hours to appear for minutes in faraway courts. That is no longer applies. As necessity being the mother of invention, shorter court hearings are now routinely conducted by video link. Similarly, our GPs and medical specialists do not need to be physically present to see and diagnose a variety of conditions. Telephone and video consultations have become available. For some needing a routine check, the appointment can be held without having to cross the Solent. How you describe the journey across that little stretch of water reveals very quickly whether the speaker is an islander or not, and if so, an overner or a corkhead. If someone says they are going over to England, they are usually a corkhead, as no overner would ever say that. If they say, "We are going back home," or "back home to England," that reveals a grockle or tourist. Incidentally, the term corkhead is not a term of abuse, commonly mistaken as corkhead, but derives from the practice of corking the gap between wooden planks in ship and boat building, which for many centuries was a main employment on the islands. I recall one visit to our local post office where I was wrapping up a parcel to send to someone before Christmas. An older lady came in. In view of her age, I asked if she had lived locally for a long time. She told me she had been here all her life. I asked if she could remember the war. She told me that one day her father had told her and her mother they all had to go to the shelter. And when she came back, they weren't allowed back in the house because a bomb had been dropped in it which had not exploded. It landed in my bed, she told me. She then watched as the wardens carried the bed out the front door with the unexploded bomb on it. When I asked if she had ever lived on the mainland, she replied, "I went there once, but I didn't like it. We like living here. It's a different world."
Beware the red flags. Latest scams to be aware of. Can you spot a scam? This is becoming increasingly challenging as scams become more sophisticated. The National Scams Team has revamped its website and is hoping to empower people to become more scam aware. The site contains useful news and updates along with advice on what to do if you become a victim. Most importantly, their online Friends Against Scams awareness video only takes around 20 minutes to watch and could prevent you from becoming a victim. The training has also been created in an accessible version for people with a learning disability, and the British Sign Language version is also available. If you are a business concerned about scams targeting your organisations, you can register for Business Against Scams. This could be particularly useful for those who have staff that work remotely. Google Friends Against Scams or go to www.friendsagainstscams, or one word, .org.uk to check out the site and take the online learning course. If you are a group or organisation that would be interested in training or a scam awareness talk, contact Trading Standards. The website is trading.standards@iow.gov.uk. Some scams to be aware of. A couple of postal scams have been received by island residents. The first purports to be from the People's Postcode Lottery, so make sure you research the genuine contact details for the lottery and contact them independently. The second purports to be an ex-employee of a Ukrainian government agency who has accessed spare government funds and wants to share it with the recipient. This is clearly a scam, so don't respond or engage. Be very cautious if you experience problems with a laptop or computer freezing and their messages appearing advising you to call a helpline. This will be scammers who will take your money and have caused the problem in the first place. Take your device to a reputable computer repair company who will be able to clean it and ensure it is safe. Apparently, Elon Musk has some Tesla cars to give away, and recipients of an email will be able to respond to claim their freebie. Don't. This is clearly a scam. Repeated calls claim to be about medical emergency buttons. Never engage. You may find yourself paying a monthly fee you are unable to cancel. For advice, call the Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline on 0808 250 5050.
What's on? Wolverton Manor Garden Fair, 31st of August and 1st of September from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Wolverton Manor, Shorewall, PO 303JS. Daily admission, adults £8, children under 14 go free.
Chaucer's Canterbury Tales brought to life. The next production in Cowes Amateur Operatic and Dramatic Society's 127-year history features characters from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Rewritten in modern English by award-winning director Gwen Stevens, the production features 8 light-hearted and funny tales with some raunchy and rude adult humour. Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales is at Trinity Theatre Cowes from September 12th to the 15th. Book at www.caods.org.uk. Gwen said, "I've wanted to bring Canterbury Tales to the stage for some years now, and am delighted to be able to do so. The Canterbury Tales brings together the clergy, the nobility, and the peasantry on a common pilgrimage to the shrine of St. Becket. The group decides to tell stories on their way to lighten the mood and enjoy the trip. These stories range from moral to vulgar, based on who tells them. Funny, rude, and insightful they are. In Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, we see unchanging humanity struggling with the same problems in the 14th century as we do today. We see the characters choose between holiness and hedonism, sanctity and sin, virtue and vice. The 7 deadly sins are as deadly and relevant now as they were in Chaucer's time. Dinah Bowman, president of CAODS, said, "I'm delighted that Gwen Stevens, one of the most talented directors on the island, is working with us again. I've sat in on rehearsals and have to say that Gwen, the cast, costumes and crew have done a terrific job bringing Chaucer to life."
Isle of Wight Steam Railway, an unforgettable adventure through time. Cider and Cheese Festival on the 7th and 8th of September. The ultimate cider and cheese festival. Choose from over 30 ciders and a huge variety of cheeses. Bars open from 11 a.m. till 5 p.m.
Help rid town of derelict properties. Having written to former MP Seeley some years ago about derelict properties, I think it is time to remind him of reality. Take a look at how years of neglect shame Sandown High Street, the large demolition site that has been such opposite Sandown Library for years, the Worsley pub on the number 3 bus route, all require new planning laws. Sandown should be one of the best holiday resorts. Instead, it is shocking. There are opportunities for rebuilding on this island, very much needed before the island's reputation is lost forever. I hope the new Labour MP will raise the issue of derelict, empty properties with the new government, and new laws are in the pipeline to help Sandown Seaside regain respect.
Cutting Allowances Most Unfair by Phil Cave, Carisbrooke. Am I the only one that when Labour won the general election thought we would have some semblance of fairness in government decisions? If I was the only one that thought this, I was very wrong. For this government to cancel the yearly heating allowance for most pensioners and then give a 15% rise to train drivers that earn £1,000 plus a week is one of the most unfair decisions I have seen for a long time. It does not bode well for the next 5 years.
Rita Woodcock of Carisbrooke gets the star letter of the week, headed Houses Needed but for the Right People. Dear Editor, I have mixed feelings about the government's house building plans for our island, and I am keeping my fingers crossed that the affordable properties will be allocated to our young people, enabling them to stay on the island close to their families. The children of these young people will increase school funding by filling vacant school places on the island. My daughter and her husband were very sad to leave the island due to the shortage and cost of affordable rental properties. They now have a baby and are paying more than half of my daughter's wages on nursery fees so that she can work to help pay the rent and bills. The family is homesick and desperate to return from the mainland to the island, where they would have the support of their family and 4 grandparents willing to provide free childcare. I am aware that many very sad island families have been split up due to housing issues. Helping these young families is fraught with difficulties, as crossing the Solent is expensive, time-consuming, and services are unreliable. I am concerned that the government's housing plans are too ambitious and believe that the number of properties that they propose to build is far too high for our present infrastructure and services. Perhaps the government intends to turn our little island into a mini metropolis, complete with high-rise buildings, dual carriageways and new infrastructure. I guess we will just wait and see.
We Need Better Leaders by Stephen Hopkins from Ryde. Dear Editor, why bother to complain? Why bother to demonstrate? Why bother to vote? Why bother? Perhaps I'm too old, living in the past, much too indoctrinated to motivate myself to take on the people who have reduced this country to a sad shadow of what made it great. My British family's heritage goes back many years, having fought wars, believing it was everyone's duty to protect Britain, to keep us safe and fight for what we believed in. If they could see this country today, would they have sacrificed themselves and endured the things that they endured? Who knows? Yes, it is true that this is not the world that I was born into. I believe the phrase it is, we have progressed, and for sure we have. Cars, washing machines, computers, medicine, knowledge, education, science and others. not forgetting the ability to destroy every one of us en masse. What's my point? Why this attitude of doom and gloom? Well, I have never believed that we live in a perfect world, a world where all things are okay. I have always believed this world is a horrible place with many horrible people in it. But there are many wonderful people, brave people, kind people, people that should be kept safe and thanked for being them. This requires strong, dedicated leadership. Leaders who believe that the country they have chosen to serve must come first, must be protected at all costs. Therein lies the problem. We don't have such people running our country. We have appeasers, weak, untrustworthy and self-interested, putting party politics above all. I don't trust them. Do you?
Patrick Riley of Cowes writes, "Ferry prices are outrageous. I am writing to express my utter outrage and profound frustration regarding the outrageous increase in ferry ticket prices. This is a blatant exploitation of those who rely on this essential service, and it is high time someone took a stand. In recent months, the cost of ferry tickets has spiralled out of control, making it virtually impossible for many families, workers and tourists to afford basic transportation. What was once a reasonable means of travel has now become a financial burden that is choking the life out of local economies and driving people away. As someone who owns a property advertised on Airbnb and HomeSwap, I have directly suffered the consequences. This year alone, I've had multiple booking cancellations because guests refuse to pay the extortionate ferry prices. This is not just a loss for me, it's a loss for the entire community that depends on tourism to survive. How can we expect to keep our local economy afloat when visitors are being driven away by these insane costs? It is absolutely unacceptable that what should be an essential public service is being treated as a luxury. Islanders have no choice but to use these ferries for their daily lives, whether it's for work, accessing services, or simply trying to live their lives. The current pricing is pushing people to their financial breaking point. I demand immediate action from the relevant authorities to stop this shameless profiteering and to regulate these prices before the situation worsens. Enough is enough."
Housing targets are draconian. David White, South White. For the first time, I am seeing the Isle of Wight Council doing something positive for the local population. This being in the form of Phil Jordan and the Council's proposal to fight Starmer and Rayner's draconian proposals on turning the island into an urban ghetto. All too soon we are experiencing what these communistic, dictatorial people think about the British way of life. We must all support our council to the last in fighting this attempt to destroy a beautiful island, its countryside, wildlife habitats and the gentle British way of life we still have. I applaud Bob Seeley for his letters and hope that the two new MPs follow suit. Perhaps we could hear their views and the stance they are taking on this. This could well prove their loyalty to the island or to the Starmer regime. Bob has expressed some good points that could prove useful in our fight. When building any new housing complexes, they should be prioritised for local people and some being affordable. We must not be an overspill or dumping ground for inner cities. Finally, I would like to see petitions, all forms of representations, from various public bodies, many of which represent our countryside, etc. We perhaps know Starmer will possibly act in his role as a dictator and possibly ignore all representations. But if that happens, then we, the island people, should take harder measures.
Oh, it's goodbye from Tony.
And goodbye from Mary.
The BBC In Touch programme follows There Is No Scaffolding news this week. Is that right?
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Today, two visually impaired professionals pursuing their dreams.
Hello, what's that there? Some Roman tile? I found something.
Right,
that was...
You did, you got some Roman tile.
We'll be exploring why archaeology is still a feasible career to follow, despite the loss of much of your sight. But first, a big moment in the life of an aspiring politician.
Please can you say your name and constituency?
Steve Darling, Torbay.
And would you like to swear or affirm?
I would like to swear, please.
I'll say each line.
Yes.
I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That I will...
Steve Darling isn't the first visually impaired MP, but he is the latest, winning Torbay in Devon for the Liberal Democrats. Since that memorable night, his guide dog Jenny seems to have been getting rather more publicity than him, so we thought we'd try to put that right. I've been talking to Steve about the excitements and the challenges of taking up his role in the Mother of Parliaments.
I personally have a very good sense of direction, which is really helpful, but it's keeping it simple because there is effectively a main core to the estate of the House of Commons. And as long as you work out what everything leads off of that in a very simplistic approach, the problem I face is doing the memory mapping of where there is a release for a swipe card and things like that, which, particularly if you've walked out of bright sunshine into a very dark place, such as bits of the Commons estate is, it can be a challenge to remember where that is. But it's just that muscle memory that you do get over time. And that's just the meat and drink of a visually impaired person's world, is that you do need a damn good memory.
Mm. What about the more general experience, the people, the atmosphere, its traditions?
It has really felt like a roller coaster ride. I have been leader of a local authority, and it feels with that you sit in the cockpit and all the controls are around you and you press boost and the plane takes off. Whereas this, you find that there's not that many controls around you, that there might be a wheel missing off underneath and maybe half a wing, because you don't have a place to work in Westminster, you don't necessarily have a constituency office, and of course you have no staff. So that has been a challenge. Fortunately, my support worker from previous work has been able to stay on with me, and she has been a massive boon. But then, of course, most MPs have around about 5 staff. You've got to get on and advertise for that and start appointing. We're beginning to do that, but it feels like swimming through treacle, without a doubt. The amount of hoops you've got to jump through, and it all just takes a very long time to get people agreed and on the books. But the cavalry is on the horizon now, which is a great relief.
Oh, well, I can hear the harness of Jenny. She has got rather more publicity than you have, hasn't she?
I think it's riding the wave. I have had to get up there on the night sleeper, which I think is a bit of a euphemism, a night sleeper. You hardly sleep at all on that train, just to do interviews around Jenny, the guide dog, and Mike Weld as well. We've also been on the equivalent of John Craven's New Round, for those of us old enough to remember that, in Australia, in India, Japan, the Press Association of France. It is bonkers. Perhaps we ought to lose the palm tree as the mascot for Torbay and just have Jenny's smiling face.
On the issue of getting around and knowing what to do from a visually impaired person's point of view, have you had help? There are 1 or 2 rather well-known visually impaired parliamentarians. Have you had help from them?
I was really grateful that the Whip's office arranged for David Blunkett to have a meeting with me in the Lords within the first week of me being up there. So that was really helpful to get his perspective on how to get the best out of the system up there, how to deal with the chamber, because there's a clock for bits of it where it gives you a countdown. Well, if you're registered blind or even partially sighted, you can't see that. So getting colleagues to assist a bit.
You mean countdowns for votes and that kind of thing? Yeah.
It's more how long you've got left to speak if you're putting a speech together. There's a clock that counts you down on that. Also, there's interventions that colleagues may be making when you're speaking. Well, actually, I'll need a colleague on my shoulder to perhaps whisper in my ear, it's Bill Bailey wanting to intervene, or whoever it is on the other side. It's not that you can't do it. As you know, it's just you may have to do it a little bit differently to the next person.
Do you feel you have any particular responsibilities to further the issue that disabled people have?
I think I don't want my disability to define me, but if, as I go about my business as a parliamentarian, I'm able to assist, as I did the first petition. I helped the Federation for the Blind hand in a petition at number 10 Downing Street in respect of floating bus stops. And Larry the cat graced us with his presence, much to Jenny's delight.
Right. And floating bus stops, these are the bus stops that people have to cross cycle paths to get to, yeah?
Yes. Yep, indeed. 30 years ago, I lived in London for about a year. And I went up there about 15 years ago, and I was shocked at how unsafe I felt in certain parts of London because of bikes. And so it's something that I have that lived experience, and I'm very happy to champion that where appropriately to hold people to account, whether it's in the chamber or whether there's the opportunity through select committees to share that lived experience. There's also legislation that has been heavily pregnant, like banning parking on pavements, something that is happening as a matter of course in Scotland. There is stuff that is about to happen with that under the previous government. It's just been criminal the way that it's been dragged on for so long. And if I'm able to assist with that, that's going to help lots of people throughout society, as long as we get the balance right around implementation.
Steve Darling, thank you very much.
It was 3 years ago on this site where we are now at Cookham in Berkshire that staff from Reading University's Archaeology Department uncovered a remarkably well-preserved Anglo-Saxon monastery. Now, a team of staff and students are back to explore the fascinating evidence of how a community lived and died here around 1200 years ago. One of those students is visually impaired Jonathan Charmley, who, despite losing much of his vision as a result of a brain tumour, is back here pursuing the subject that he loves and still hopes to make a career of, archaeology. Jonathan, first of all, before telling me about how you lost your sight, perhaps you could paint a bit of a picture for me of where we are and the significance of this find.
We are currently on the bank of the River Thames, just upstream from Maidenhead. It is on the site of Holy Trinity Church, and we are excavating in its paddock. We are looking back to the 8th and 9th century AD, where this would have been the site of a very important abbey home to nuns. Although we believe the chapel building itself is currently under Holy Trinity Church itself, we're able to excavate the surrounding area to find out about how not only the nuns but the entire community that supported the abbey lived and died.
And I mean, I think you came upon a cemetery, didn't you?
Yes, so the cemetery was a bit of a surprise for us. We came across two potential burials, which gave us the indication of, there could be something here. So we moved the trench back, opened it a bit wider last year, and we came across very clear evidence of a cemetery. And it's through that we've been able to learn a lot about health, about people's jobs, about diet, about age, lots of useful information that we can get from skeletal remains. We've found lots of illness in this cemetery. So what we believe we have here is an early hospital, as abbeys were some of the very few places with the time, the knowledge and the resources to care for people.
You've handled, I think, some of the skeletons from the cemetery.
Yes, last year I was lucky enough to work on 2 of the skeletons, which was a remarkable and quite a strange and surreal experience, particularly when I was lifting the skull. That was a strange experience.
Because I presume touch here is a very important component of how you appreciate what you've got.
Yes, both touch and sound. So one of the big challenges for me in Trench 2 when I was working on the skeletons is, do I have a bone or do I have a stone? As some of the fingers and the toes, they're very small bones. So therefore I would use touch, as often stones are smoother than bone. They're a bit coarser, particularly when they're this old. But also because they're covered in mud, that can be a bit deceiving. So I tap them with the metal bit of my trowel. So this is stone. And this is bone.
This is very interesting because I just wonder how much touch and sound, maybe smell as well, are all factors in being able to do this as a job as well as a hobby.
Definitely. It's not just looking for a different colour, which now that I've lost my sight is harder. It's when we trowel across it, it's the feel. Is the ground less compacted than the ground around it? Does it sound different when I'm scraping away, but also is it easier to trowel away at the soil? So it's something that I've focused on more and have learnt really how to use.
I guess this is exactly the moment to perhaps return to how you lost your sight. Can you just explain what happened?
I started university in 2019. However, I noticed in 2021, in around January, February, my eyesight in my left eye wasn't quite right. So I got sent to the eye doctors, and there I got diagnosed with a brain tumour. So I've got half the vision in my left eye, which is also a bit blurry due to the pressure on the optic nerve the tumour had. However, during my second round of neurosurgery, they bruised something called the third nerve, which controls pupil dilation, so how the pupil gets bigger and smaller. The eyelid is shut, but it's just stuck pointing in one direction. I was initially trying to just get on with life without any changes, but it was until I was doing my radiotherapy in Manchester that I realised that I needed help with people diving in and out of the small vision I had left. Can be quite scary sometimes. So that's when I started to be trained on how to use a long cane.
Tell me a bit more about how you work now and what modifications you've had to make.
So I've done site tours, so I've now learnt the site, so I know where various things are. We keep tools in set locations so that there's not a mattock or a spade or a wheelbarrow in the middle of one of my paths. But also when I dig, I never dig alone. I am always digging with someone next to me or near me who can be my eyes, who can just double check what I'm doing. Any colour changes here, or is it mainly just the same?
Right in front of you there has been a bit of a colour change. There's quite light soil, but this whole area is like a midden, so it's like a rubbish pile.
There's a slightly raised bit here, is that okay?
Yes.
To keep it this height?
Yep, that's fine, don't worry.
Back at university, I use technology on my computer to read reports to me. I use magnifiers to help identify finds. Sometimes I can actually see things better with the magnifiers than my colleagues can with the old-fashioned lenses instead of the HD magnifiers.
Professor Gabor Thomas is the leader of the team and he's with me now. First of all, you've had Jonathan here working after what happened to him and the change in his circumstances. I'm just wondering what your feelings are about the practicalities of visually impaired people doing this kind of work. How much can it be done by touch, by smell, by all the other senses?
Certainly those kinds of senses, or drawing upon those senses, is really important. To interpret archaeology as it comes out the ground, texture is just as important as the visual characteristics. Certainly there are challenges to doing archaeology like this within a commercial environment where most excavations take place. But what we got the opportunity to do here, this is a university research-led excavation, is make the kind of accommodations that allow people such as Jonathan to make a really active contribution to our research.
Would this be something that, for example, if somebody came along to you and said, I want to do a course in archaeology, would you say, go ahead, or would you say there are too many practical difficulties?
I would say absolutely go for it. If this is a subject that you're passionate about and fires your intellectual curiosity, I would hope that any degree programme offering archaeology would make the desired accommodations to make that degree as an enriching experience as possible for you.
So that is the sound of a sieve we use, so all of the soil we remove. It's very easy to miss finds because we're all covered in soil, so we put them through a sieve to help make finds easier to spot, and then we can pull out bits of animal bones, some brooches, strap ends, finds that we might have missed initially in our first trowel through. This is another great example of teamwork, as the sieves we use had to be used by 2 people, and it's also quicker to you have 2 people working through what's left over to find the finds. So where we're currently at is we're at the finds tent. So once things come out the ground, they're covered in dirt, and it's then they've got to be cleaned so we can see them in greater detail. And our main weapon when it comes to this is the old-fashioned toothbrush and a bowl of cold water, which can, on a hot summer's day, be quite nice.
A toothbrush?
A toothbrush. So we get it, dip it in the water, and then it's just a case of... Here we've got a couple of finds, and I'm going to put this in your hand, Pete. So this is part of a cheese press.
Really?
You can feel it's just got lots of holes on.
Yeah. This is stone, presumably. Is it stone?
Not stone. It's either clay or pottery.
Right.
And it's got a lot of holes that will let the whey drain out when they press down on the mix, and you're left with the cheese. So we're finding evidence of Anglo-Saxon cheese making.
Do you think there's still a career for you in archaeology?
Definitely in archaeology. I probably won't be a field archaeologist just because I don't have the energy to do it full time, but definitely in working with finds, doing site tours, talking to people.
Because I think that's one of the things that you're doing here. Perhaps some people can hear kind of murmurings in the background. A lot of people come around this site to see what you're doing, and I gather that's partly what you do.
Yes, so this year I am one of the visitor managers for this site, so working on tours, both big group tours but small individual tours, one-on-one, and that is one of my favourite things to do, is to tell people, to enthuse people about archaeology, but also to represent someone with a disability doing a site tour, to let people know that no matter what happens you can keep doing what you love.
Tell me a bit more about what the fascination is for you. What is it about archaeology that you love?
So I have always loved history, but where archaeology has the advantage over history for me personally is the ability to hold history in your hands, to be able to find it, to be able to touch it in a way that reading it or listening to it on a textbook doesn't quite give you. It's much more tactile, it's much more personal. I'm actually able to do archaeology. I've not been asked onto site and then just put on the side and given busy work. I'm actually in the thick of it, doing very key, very unique, once-in-a-lifetime archaeology.
Jonathan Charmley, and we'll follow both his and Steve Darling's progress with interest. We look forward, as always, to hearing from you about what's on your mind and what you'd like us to cover. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk or leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. Next week, amongst other things, news of the winners, we hope, at the Paris Paralympics. Till then, from me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.